La gente siempre me pregunta, ¿no es peligroso vivir en Latinoamérica? ¿Y sabes qué? Honestamente es una pregunta válida, pero son muy pocos los momentos en los que me he sentido inseguro en Latam. Y aquí está la verdad impactante. La única vez que me han robado, no una, sino 2 veces, no fue en Latam, en Colombia, donde vivo ahora. No fue en Costa Rica, donde viví 2 años, y no fue en México, donde he ido más veces de las que puedo contar, desde Tijuana hasta Tamaulipas. Fue en Estados Unidos, mi país de origen, de hecho en Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Y hoy vamos a practicar tu listening en inglés mientras te cuento la historia de cómo me robaron. Y además vamos a aprender un par de frases clave en inglés que debes conocer y que puedes empezar a utilizar de inmediato. Piénsalo como un reto para ver cuánto inglés entiendes realmente y juntos vamos a descubrir si de verdad comprendes el inglés nativo o no. Y ojo, esta es una historia real, no es mentira. Alright? Let's begin. In the summer of 2008, my mom took my friend and I on a vacation to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's about 4 hours from my hometown, which is Greensboro, North Carolina. Now, Myrtle Beach is very famous, okay? It's a tourist magnet with beaches, clubs, restaurants, and a big party scene everywhere. Depending on where you are, it feels either really chill or totally chaotic. Chaotic, that's a good word. Not sure if you know it, but it means noisy, messy, and basically out of control. Imagine Times Square in New York on New Year's Eve. That's chaotic. Entonces, básicamente quiere decir caótico en español. But, back to the story. One morning, while on vacation, we went to breakfast at an American diner. Okay, and a diner, by the way, that's a type of restaurant that serves classic, no-frills food like pancakes, grits, omelets. It's very cheap, but it's filling and delicious. It's not usually healthy, but you don't really care because you're on vacation. Okay, and so after breakfast, I realized I had left my iPod in the hotel room. Back then, everyone had iPods. That was basically how we carried our music with us everywhere we went. So it was important that I go get my iPod. So I thought, 2 minutes, in and out, no big deal. I'll just run and grab my iPod. But when I got to the hallway in the hotel, I noticed something strange. The door to our hotel room wasn't closed. It was cracked open slightly, maybe an inch or 2. And I remember having locked the door myself, so I knew something was weird. Cracked open, by the way, just means slightly open, not shut all the way. Okay, cracked open enough just to basically be considered open, but not really wide open, if that makes sense. So as I got closer to the door, I saw the cleaning lady come out of the room next door. I smiled to her, I said hi. Everything seemed normal, but I had a weird feeling in my stomach. When I pushed the door open to my hotel room, I basically ran straight into a man, a guy I didn't know, a complete stranger, coming out of my hotel room. I was shocked. I looked him right in the eye and I yelled in an elevated voice, "What are you doing in my room? Who the hell are you?" Okay, and I was only 16 years old, and I didn't usually speak like this. I was simultaneously very nervous because nothing like this had ever happened to me before, and I wasn't a fighter, meaning I did not tend to get angry or get into fights. I wasn't, and I'm still not that type of person, even to this day. I'm not always looking to fight somebody or something like that. And so at that second, the cleaning lady appeared out of nowhere. Out of nowhere means suddenly or unexpectedly. It's like saying de repente o de la nada. So it's when something happens without warning. Like for example, the dog barked out of nowhere and scared me to death. Okay? That's how we use out of nowhere. But back to the story. So I looked at the cleaning lady and I asked her directly, "Did you let this guy into my room?" I was a little nicer than that, but that's what I asked her. And she said to me, "Yes, he told me he was locked out." Now, to be locked out means quedarse afuera y o no poder entrar. The problem with what she said was that literally moments earlier, the man had told me that he was lost and looking for his room. So I knew one thing, somebody was lying, and my gut told me it was him, not the maid. So naturally, already being upset, I got even more upset and I shouted to the man, "What the hell did you take? Why were you in my room? Why were you in there?" And he didn't answer. He just turned and started walking at an accelerated pace, a little faster, toward the stairwell. This is what a stairwell looks like, by the way. It's basically like an enclosed area that contains nothing but the stairs. Actually, most buildings have stairwells because they're used as an alternative to using the elevator if you want some exercise or in case of emergencies, okay? And in that moment, that's when I realized I had let my guard down a little bit because he's trying to literally run. He's trying to flee the scene, okay? I let my guard down. What does that mean? To let your guard down means to stop being careful or alert, okay? For example, she let her guard down around him and he took advantage of her. Okay, she let her guard down around him and he took advantage of her. That's exactly what happened to me. I let my guard down and now this guy was officially trying to run and escape. And guess what I did in that moment? 16 years old, this guy was probably older than 40. I chased him down 3 flights of stairs. Eventually, he tripped and fell and started lying, saying that I pushed him, which wasn't true. So I kept chasing him. 2 or 3 stairs at a time, I would jump. He was doing every step. I would jump 2 or 3 steps at a time because I was really trying to catch him and not let him get away. Now, I want to be clear. In that moment, I still didn't know what he had stolen, if anything. I didn't know if he had money, technology, or if he stole clothes. I had no clue. But I was angry. And at one point, after going down the stairs, I chased him across the parking lot of the hotel, into the parking lot of another hotel, and then another hotel. So 2 different hotels. I'm chasing him down 2 or 3 blocks, okay, on Ocean Drive in Myrtle Beach. And at one point, the man got a little winded, which basically means tired. He couldn't keep running. He got tired. He got winded. So I caught up to him and I grabbed the hat off of his head. I don't know why I did that. I reached and I grabbed the hat and took it off of his head. Looking back at this experience, maybe instinctually I did this so that I could see his face more clearly. Not sure, kind of crazy, right? And so we started to argue about his hat. He would say to me, "Give me back my hat," almost like a little kid. It was kind of like, why is this guy who seems to be like 45, 50, 55, maybe even 60, I had no idea. Why is he like begging me for his hat back in the middle of this moment? So that did seem a little strange to me. And keep in mind, I realized that chasing someone is very dangerous, especially as a 16-year-old teenager. At the time, even though I didn't realize it, I think I had an invincibility complex, okay? Invincibility complex, which basically means complejo de invencibilidad, o digamos, si prefieres, sentimiento de invulnerabilidad, just like many other young people. But obviously, I didn't realize how dangerous this situation was for me. So minutes later, the police arrive and they arrested him. Then they escorted me back to the hotel room to inspeccionar, to inspect the room to find out what, if anything, was stolen. I still didn't know what the guy stole. And so it turns out that he had gone through the drawers, which basically means buscar por todos lados, right? In the drawers of the dresser. He had gone through them, looking everywhere. And we discovered that the cash that we had been taken. I don't know exactly how much, maybe $25, maybe $50, but he left the iPod. Remember, originally I was going to get my iPod. It was right on the table and he left the iPod there. And the truth is that this kind of experience can happen to anyone. También decimos en inglés could. We say can o could happen to anyone, right? Es como decir, le podría suceder a cualquiera, cualquier persona. And I realized that what happened that day was not about us being careless. Us meaning me, my friend, my mom, or whoever. We were not careless. We did lock the door. We did take security and protective measures, if you will. This is about reality. This kind of thing can happen to you, your neighbor, or to anyone. But here's something that I never expected, and that you probably don't expect to hear right now either. This guy wasn't even staying at our hotel. He somehow walked in off the street and just started looking around to find rooms that were unlocked, and he eventually got the maid to let him into our room, lying to her and saying that it was his room. So obviously, she should have asked him to see his identification. She should have verified with the front desk if that was actually his room or not, but instead, she just let him in. By the way, she did not get fired, and we did not press charges against the man either. I did not want any problems. I didn't want the man to be hurt. I was angry, but I didn't want to hurt him, and I didn't want her to be fired either, because it looked like she really needed that job. She seemed very nice. She seemed to take her work seriously, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to either person, especially after learning more a few moments later. Listen to this part. About 2 hours later, his family, his 2 daughters and his wife, yes, he had a wife and everything, they were actually on vacation when he did this, came to our hotel to apologize to us on behalf of the man. They felt very bad about what had happened. And his wife, interestingly enough, told us that the man tended to steal things even though he had money for them. Like, for example, something as small as a candy bar that cost $1 from a gas station. He would go in and steal that. Or a t-shirt, let's say from Walmart or some other big box store. He had the money, but he would steal it anyway. I thought I was dealing with a burglar, but in reality, I was dealing with a man who was mentally ill. He was sick. And that's when I learned an important lesson that I've seen over and over again in my life. Never judge a book by its cover, okay? That means never judge someone or some experience or some place just based on how it looks or how it appears at first sight. And as I say, this applies to people, experiences, and pretty much everything. So I'm lucky to have not been hurt. The man was arrested. He did have to pay a small fine, but we did not press any charges, and we're all okay today. Ok, ¿qué tal te pareció esta historia? Cuéntame en los comentarios, por favor, si te resultó fácil seguir y entender mi inglés, y también qué lección sacaste de la historia de hoy, que es una historia real. Además, quiero saber si aprendiste alguna frase nueva, así que, por favor, escríbemela en los comentarios de ser así. Y si tú realmente quieres poner a prueba tu comprensión en inglés, he diseñado un PDF gratuito con un quiz de selección múltiple que puedes responder rápidamente para poder descubrir si de verdad entendiste mi inglés en esta historia. Además de la prueba gratuita en este PDF, he incluido una oferta exclusiva para ti si es que no entendiste mucho y quieres aprender el idioma desde cero conmigo, ¿ok? Tu experiencia previa, tu edad, tu nivel actual, no importan. Todos pueden aprovecharlo. Pero descárgalo ya mientras aún puedes, porque si esperas y no ves la oferta en el PDF, quiere decir que ya se acabaron los cupos que tenemos y no queremos eso. Quiero que puedas obtener el descuento. Entonces, tal vez en este momento estés diciéndote a ti mismo, nah, es que ya sé que entendí todo. Ok, pero mi reto para ti es por qué no ponerlo a prueba con la pruebita en el PDF. Hay que verificar eso, ¿ok? Muchas gracias por todo tu apoyo. Espero que hayas disfrutado de esta historia. Nos vemos en el PDF y muchísimas gracias nuevamente. Hasta luego.